Motivating ourselves as managers and leaders is a critical factor in success, and being able to program ourselves for success and others is also important. And I want to share with you something in terms of how we program ourselves, because human beings all program themselves. And we speak to ourselves at the rate of about 200 words a minute. And if you think about it, how many of those words would be positive? Oh, not that many. Yeah, would you ever speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourselves? I don't think so. Like, you know, you do something and it wasn't too smart and you go, "You jerk, I cannot believe you did this, look what you did, you look like a moron." I mean, we say things to ourselves that you wouldn't dream of saying out loud to anybody else. So remember, we're programming that stuff in. Now, the sad part is that our early years, we had other people program stuff in that we then take on board for ourselves as well. So the way I like to describe programming ourselves is, imagine you got a ship. And you can tell my incredible artistic qualities. And here's the captain on the ship, and down here we have the engine room person. Now remember, the engine room person is below the level of the water, and the captain represents our conscious mind. The engine room person is our subconscious mind. So what happens, the way we program ourselves, when we talk to ourselves, it's like the conscious mind, so the captain. And you know, on a ship, when the captain says, 10 degrees starboard, down that little thing that he talks to him with, or her with, this engine room person has no idea where they're going. He just, or she just, hears the captain go 10 degrees starboard, and they go 10 degrees starboard. Well, they could be heading for the open ocean, they could be heading for a rock, they could be heading for the coast. The engine room person doesn't know, just follows the instructions of the captain blindly. Well, that's what your conscious and subconscious minds are like. So the next time you say to yourselves, "Oh, I can't remember names, I'm lousy at remembering names, I never remember names," guess what happens? You're in a situation where you've just been introduced to somebody and you're about to say goodbye to them after a conversation, and you go, "Well, it was great to meet you." Shh, shh, shh. And your subconscious mind has suddenly realized what's going to happen, and it thinks, "We never remember names," and it sucks that name off the end of your tongue. And that's literally what happens. Well, not exactly literally, but close. And it just sucks that name. If you say, "I can't spell," "I'm too fat," "I'm too thin," "I always make mistakes," "I never remember new things," "Look at all the people in this team, I'll never remember all their names." Well, you know what your subconscious does? "Oh, okay then." It's like the captain says, 10 degrees starboard. "Okay then." 14 degrees the other way. What's the other way? Port. 14 degrees port. "Oh, okay then." So when you say, "I never remember names," "Oh, okay then." Now, practically in your life, you can imagine how this applies. But let me give you, I used to go out with somebody 10,000 years ago who was always lucky with parking. Wherever we go, he would just slot straight into a place right outside the place we were supposed to go. Me, I used to leave 20 minutes early because I knew I was never going to get a place to park, and so I would have to drive around and I would have to give myself extra time to make sure that I could find a park and still be there on time. Well, I realised after a while, because this used to drive me nuts, I realised I programmed that in. Before I left the house, I would say, "I'll never get a park, I'd better leave early because I'll never get a park." And I bet you I used to drive past places where I could have parked the car, and I didn't see it because my subconscious mind, "Don't look at that, you don't get parks that close." And that's literally what happens. So think of the things that you're saying to yourselves now that are programming in other than positive things that you would like programmed in. And think of the two main ones, because we all have them. You know, it's going to be, "I'm too short, I'm too tall, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm not confident enough, I don't have self-esteem, I'm lousy speaking in front of people, I'm no good at performance appraisals, my boss hates me." You know, it kind of goes across the board. So think of the two main ones, and then in 10 seconds or less, you're going to turn to your new best friend who's sitting beside you, and you're going to tell them what those two things are. Okay? So, on the count of 3, ready? 1. Look at you, you're all thinking, what are they, what are they, what are those two things? I'm just giving you more time to think about them now because most of you stopped breathing and you're thinking, what are they? So you had time now? 1, 2, 3, go. Tell them the two things. Okay, wind up and come on back. That's great, guys. And you know, this is, of course, just a trigger. Go away and start to look at what you say to yourselves and listen to what you say to yourselves and pay attention to it, because the more you notice, the more you can control. When it's just running rampant inside your engine room, you know, the subconscious mind, controlling your behaviours, you've got no clue what's going on. So the things that you think become your beliefs, which then affect your behaviours. So the things that you're thinking all the time, now what's thinking? Thinking's what you say to yourself. Thinking's all that stuff. I think I'm an idiot. I think I'm lousy at blah, blah, blah. I'm no good at meetings. I'm no good at this, blah, blah, blah. They become your beliefs. And then that affects your behaviours. You've got to find a way to reframe this, guys. Reframing is a very important thing. And we have to reframe it for others and ourselves. And remember that the people you're leading and managing, they've had people program bad stuff into them too, and you can do it in a nanosecond. When you're in a position of authority, you're almost like the captain. And you say one thing about them and their performance in a throwaway moment where you don't think about it, and bam, they've got it embedded. So what can we do about it? Well, first of all, become aware of what you're saying to yourselves and how you're programming, and go to change it. Now, how can you change it? Well, you know when you type in a computer, if you want to change a phrase or a paragraph or something, you delete that. You highlight it, you delete it, and you have to type something else in. Because if you don't type something else in, often there's a space. Well, you don't have empty spaces in your head. That doesn't happen. Although men can actually think nothing. Yes, it's true. Ladies, it's true. Fellas, for your edification, women never think nothing. Never. Wouldn't that be right, ladies? I've not met one woman yet who can actually think and have nothing on her mind. Nothing. Just sit. And you know how women go up to guys who are sitting there and there? And we say, what are you thinking about? Because we are always thinking. And you look at us and go, nothing. And we say, no, 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 you must be thinking about something. How can you not be thinking nothing? You must be thinking, no, no, nothing. And in the end, I think, poor guys, you make something up to get her off your back. Yes, there you go. Oh, well. Anyway, that's the world. So, if we go back to how can you eliminate these negative thoughts, try to get rid of them, but that's very difficult. Instead, let's change the way they sound as they go in. So let's change the way you program them in. And there are 3 key phrases that I want you to write down, and they are in the past, up till now, and yet. In the past, up till now, and yet. Now listen to the difference it makes when I add one of those phrases to something I've programmed in. So let's say, I never remember names. As soon as I catch myself saying, I never remember names, if I add yet. Now the grammar's not good, but it doesn't matter. If I say, I never remember names yet, what's the message that gets cemented in? It's, I don't remember them yet, but I will. Now, I never remember names in the past. That meant in the past I never remember, but I will now. So up till now, I've never remembered names. The trick is catching yourself, and I used to do this, like nobody taught me this early on, and I had humongous numbers of negative phrases I used on myself. And what I would do is catch myself saying it out loud. So, you know, I'd say, oh, I never get a car park, oh, up till now. And you can say it under your breath, and nobody hears it really. And if they do, they just think you're a psycho, so what's it matter? Or it's irrelevant because it's so out of context they don't even notice it. But seriously, they don't notice it. And you can use this on yourselves, and you can use it with people who work with you, and encourage them to start programming in positive things about themselves. And you know, if they're really stuck and they can't find anything positive to program in, you've got to help them big time. Find things that are positive that they can program in. And you look for things in yourselves, because who develops you? See, my husband, Ken Wright, Mr. Wright, he has this great phrase that is, managers manage things, leaders develop people. Managers manage things, leaders develop. You know what? It's really easy to manage things. Things are inanimate, you can take control of them, you can look at numbers, you can do that stuff, but leading and developing people, well, that's like a lifetime journey. And that's the one you're on. So understand that programming in different things makes a huge difference to how people operate. And then Alvin Toffler, have you ever heard of Alvin Toffler? He's a futurist. He's a guy who writes, you know, these humongous books, and they're all about the future. Well, he says that intelligence in the future will not be measured by the ability to read and write. Intelligence in the future will be measured by the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And the flexibility of somebody who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. Like, think of the things that you learnt 5 years ago that are now completely reversed. And so things transform, and if we're not flexible enough to learn, unlearn, and relearn, then we're in trouble. We are not going to be flexible and resilient enough to be leaders who can actually develop people and cope with the monumental change that goes on in corporations today. And I found this, you know, the internet has stories all the time. Well, I found this great story the other day, and I have to use these, of course. And so, here's the story, right? There once was a bunch of tiny frogs who arranged a running competition. Their goal was to reach the top of a very high tower. A big crowd had gathered around the tower to see the race and cheer on the contestants. And the race began. Honestly, no one in the crowd really believed that the tiny little frogs would reach the top of the tower. You heard statements such as, "Oh, way too difficult. They'll never make it to the top." Or, "Not a chance they'll succeed. That tower's too high." The tiny frogs began collapsing, one by one, except for those who in a fresh tempo were climbing higher and higher. The crowd continued to yell, "It's too difficult! No one will make it!" More tiny frogs got tired and gave up, but one continued higher and higher and higher. This one just wouldn't give up. And at the end, everyone else had given up climbing the tower, except for this tiny little frog who, after one last big effort, was the only one who reached the top. Then all the other tiny frogs naturally wanted to know, "What did you do? How'd you manage to do that?" A contestant asked the tiny frog how he found the strength to succeed and reach the goal. It turned out the winner was deaf. He hadn't heard what all the others were saying. So this story says the wisdom of the story is never listen to other people's tendencies to be negative or pessimistic, because they take your most wonderful dreams and wishes away from you, the ones you have in your heart. And you know, we have that power with other people. If somebody comes to you and they got this monster goal and they're ambitious and they want to do this, if we say to them, "Oh, I just want to help them, you know, I don't want them to be disappointed," or "We don't want our children to be disappointed," we're yelling out, "You'll never make it top, it's too high." And you can program that into people. And I bet people have done that to you. You know, they've come to you early in your years and they don't even know they're doing it. But they've said something and it's flattened what you gave up at the 6th story instead of bouncing higher and higher. So be deaf to the things that are negative around you. Become deaf to people who are negative around you. Avoid them best, but become deaf to anything that they say that pulls you down. And be very, very conscious of what you say to others, because it really has a huge impact. And you can program yourselves and others differently. And that, even though they're little things that in the past, up till now and yet, they're very powerful. They really have a transformative effect down deep inside you, at your subconscious. But then there's another great phrase that you can use in terms of that reprogramming. And it's brilliant. Again, very sophisticated. The phrase is, "If you say so." Now think about how you can use this. Let's say, let me use a teenager, right? Because everybody has teenagers, or you know of teenagers, or you've had an experience with a teenager. And a teenager will come up and say something like, "Oh, look at this sit! Look at this! I can't go outside! Look, I look ugly! I'm so ugly!" Now when they do that to you, you want to look at them and go, "It's a zit! Get over it! It's a zit!" But to the teenager, it's like this Mount Vesuvius on their face. So what you can say to them to transform quickly how they think, you look at them and they go, "I'm so ugly! Oh, I'm going to die!" You look at them and go, "If you say so." And you know, it's amazing. When you say, if you say so to someone and they've been saying something ridiculous like that, they go, "Well, I didn't exactly mean that. Well, I didn't, you know, like oh, it's all right." And when you say "if you say so," guys, make sure you put some oomph into it. You know, you've got to go, "Well, if you say so." You can't kind of go, "If you say so." Like, let's put a bit of life into this thing. When you're looking at somebody, you have to kind of give them some energy. So it's like, "If you say so." and put the conviction behind it. So it's a tiny thing, but it's very, very effective. And then the other thing that you can do, which I think might make a difference, is to make a journal. And you won't have to do this for long because you'll transform, you'll reframe everything. But keep a journal of the negative phrases you're aware of that you use on yourself. And then out of interest, keep a journal of the negative phrases you use with other people. Like just literally yesterday, I had an email from a very good friend of mine, and he was telling me that in that, he didn't quite know how to bring it to me, but he just felt that when I was around him, I was a bit negative and pessimistic about him. Well, you know, I read this email and I went, oh, was I? Have I? And I said to Ken, did I do this? And Ken said, well, sometimes. And then we worked out that I had done it sometimes, so I need to improve that myself. But a lot of it was my Australian sense of humour. And he's an American. So the Australian sense of humour is kind of, you know, we go, well, you know, you're never going to be able to do that. That sort of thing. It's not a good sign in our culture, but it's one that if you've been to Australia, you'll know it. We do it a lot. And so I think in Australia there's a certain resilience over it. We got, most of us, of course I'm generalising, but most of us have pretty thick skins because that's what you do down there. So whatever culture you're in, be sensitive to the cultural differences and nuances that you have, but I still think these are pretty useful phrases to use along the way. And it's good to pay attention. So if you keep a journal of what you say to yourselves and what you say to others about others, particularly when the people in your team, I think you might find it very interesting to find out how much positive you say to them and how much other than positive you might be saying. And then the other thing that's absolutely critical for us to pay attention to are the words we use. And in fact, I just used one. How many times have you said, oh, look, that was a great job, but we just need to modify this? Which was the word that should not have been in there? That would be but. Yeah. See, when and but are critical words, try to eliminate the word but from your vocabulary. Because every time you say but, you pretty much negate everything that came before it. If somebody comes up and they've got an idea, and you say, great idea, John, but we just need, you know, John thinks he has great idea, and as soon as the word but comes in, he's gone from great idea, but, and down he goes. So it's critical that you think about the words. Use and try to eliminate but. Here's the other one, the word don't. Whenever you say to somebody, now, don't forget to do the report on such and such, your subconscious mind doesn't hear the word don't. It hears forget to do the blah, blah, blah. Don't forget to remind me. The brain hears forget to remind me. Think of kids. There's a little baby with a cup of milk walking across the carpet, has not spilled a drop of milk. Has walked through 27 rooms without dropping, dropping any of the milk. And then you see them and go, ah, don't spill the milk, bang. Because you just told them, spill the milk. You've got to find a way to get rid of all the don'ts in your language. And wait till you try it. It's nigh on impossible when you first start. It's, if I say so. No, it's easy once you put your mind to it. And pay attention to the word don't and have it like a flashing symbol every time you use it. Things like another child walking along the fence. The kids are, you know, she's walked 24 miles on the fence. Just fine. You see them, ah, don't fall off the fence, bang. So the reframe is, keep your balance, stay on the fence. You know, so if you're doing that with your team members and the people whom you look after, then no more don'ts. No, don't forget to do that report. It's remember to do the report on Thursday. Remember we've got that meeting. All those little tiny things. It's a bit of a challenge, change it, but you can. And then just one other thing that's critical. Listen to me as I introduce myself for a presentation you might be doing. Well, hi guys. My name's Amanda, and I'll be, thanks for coming today, and we're going to be talking about the budget. In that short sentence, 2/3 of you went. And you lose the plot because someone is filling the spaces with ums and ers. If you want to lose credibility, keep saying and If you want to gain credibility, use the pause. The pause is the single most significant and powerful tool that you can use in communicating. So let's try that again, where I say, hello, my name's Amanda. Thank you for coming. And today our meeting is about blah, blah, blah. Like, how different does that sound? And then just quick, the last thing. We've talked about words, which is like verbal communication, and we all know how difficult those are. But non-verbal communication is far more powerful. Non-verbal communication is 80 to 93% of everything we communicate. And it's as if we all walk around with invisible fish bowls on our heads. And in these fish bowls are sparkly bits. And my sparkly bits and your sparkly bits talk to each other all the time. And if what comes out of my mouth doesn't match what's coming out of my sparkly bits, guess what you pick up? Always, always, always the sparkly bits. And so you remember this. Look, look, I just want to show you this. Ta-da! And the good news is, if you look under your seats, you all have one of these yourselves. So pull them out and pop them on your head. We've all got our own sets of sparkly bits. And let me share with you how critical these things are. Like, people think, oh no, I look an idiot. If you say so. But these are so important. These are the, you should see yourselves, it's like, I feel very mature right now. But these are the single most important thing you will ever find to improve your communication. See, you can't hide sparkly bits. Now, these come into play in great leadership and management. Mary Kay Ash, you remember Mary Kay Ash, who sold cosmetics in America, and there were bazillions of Mary Kay cosmetics people. It was a huge company. Well, she used to teach all her salespeople that whenever you meet somebody, imagine they're wearing a button that says, make me feel special. Well, I want you to imagine everybody's wearing a banner across their heads that says, make me feel special. And if you can see everybody has that banner and you do something to make them feel special, it makes a huge difference. So quick, I want you to put the pens down, because I want you to use a pretend pen. Okay, so use your finger as a pretend pen. Reach across to your new best friend quickly, and I want you to write MMFS on their forehead. MMFS. That's for make me feel special. Or in whatever language, the country that you're in, you just put the appropriate initials for make me feel special. Okay, good job, good job. And if we had time, I would make you say something to the person next to you to make them feel special. But your mission is, when you go back out into the offices, is to say something that makes every single person you meet feel special every time you meet them. When my little nephew, who's now 17, was about 4, we have a very close relationship. And I used to come into my sister's driveway and I would go, yoo-hoo! And this little blonde bullet would come out of the kitchen and go, ah! And start running towards me. Have you ever had children do that? If you've never had a child do that to you, rent one. It is the best feeling on the planet. Your heart explodes with joy. Well, he used to go, ah, it's you. And you know, that's what honouring is. And this happens in the early days of relationships. We come in, we meet a new person, and every time we see them, it's like, oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. Now, you don't do it out loud, but your sparkly bits are going, oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. And as the relationship progresses, you know, the words stay the same, but the sparkly bits change. So in the beginning, it's, oh, it's you. A few years later, it's, oh, it's you. And eventually, it's, oh, it's you. See, same words, different sparkly bits. Very, very powerful stuff. So that concept of honouring others is absolutely essential. So on the count of 3, you're going to look one side, then the other, and you're going to say, oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. Because when you go back to work, I want you in your hearts and at a sparkly bit level to be honouring others. Because when you have your most difficult team person coming up to you and you're saying to yourself, because that's where sparkly bits come from, what you say to yourself. If you're saying, oh no, what now? What is it? What problem have you got today? That's what they see. They don't hear your words. They just see the what is it? And you know, if you do things like, you jerk, that's what they get. You've got to be careful of what you say to yourself about other people, because it goes bam out your sparkly bits. So on the count of 3, one side then the other. Oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. Beautiful, beautiful. And if you go back to work and you honour everybody and you remember the importance of sparkly bits and the ands and the buts and the don'ts and avoid them, and program yourselves differently, you will program others differently and you will run a spectacular team.
you.